Well, I messed up and had this thing as unlisted, apparently. So that explains why no one's here. I imagine people will find it in the next minute or two. I came into the room, and usually there are people waiting for the start, and there weren't any. And I thought, well, do I have something in my teeth? Then I realized I had it set to unlisted rather than public. So, oops. Let's see if anyone finds this. Come on, people, find me. Hey, Jeff. Yeah, well, you made it before anyone else because I forgot to list it as public. I had it mistakenly listed as private. Hey, Mac. So, okay, good. It's a weird live stream if I'm just waiting for someone to talk to. It sounds kind of sad and lonely. Hey, Tango Tommy. Hey, Andy. Well, I'm glad you made it, Jeff. Hey, Scott. Z-Man. Sorry about the snafu. I put this up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I must have just missed the unlisted box and didn't see it until I sat down. I'm like, nobody's here. I even went to check the comments on the Sweetwater video to make sure that there wasn't some big drama that I missed overnight. Made everyone not like me anymore. Those who do. Hope everyone's doing well. Hey, old guy. Hey, everyone. Spruce Creek Traders, greetings from Maine. Speaking of Maine, we're actually having nice weather here in Memphis today. It's not hot for once, you know. Keep my fingers crossed. Hey, Daria. I am going to be going out this afternoon now that the weather's cooled, but I need to do this live stream first. So, hey, Arno. Almost done with this Sweetwater modded deluxe reverb. I spoke to the owner, and we decided to undo the shared reverb and trim, but to keep the slowed tremolo. So I did it a little more properly without any tack soldered cheap components. And I did all the usual reliability upgrades and a few other things. I've just got to redo 2 shielded wire runs, then it'll be ready to go. But the thing that really got me, and it was in the previous video, I didn't mention it because I didn't see it. One of the sharp-eyed commenters saw it, and I did not see it because I never dreamed that I have to look for such things. Someone, I assume Sweetwater, soldered the heater fuse to the fuse holder. So what's the point of having a removable fuse if you can't remove it and replace it? It's besides the point now because I took that whole circuit out because you don't need a heater fuse in these things. But yeah, I didn't see the soldered fuse holder then on my initial go through because why the hell would I be looking for that? That's, you know. So I'm going to get in touch with Sweetwater and say, hey, you know, don't do that. You can do an awful lot of things with amps, but don't do that. Someone from Sweetwater had commented on that video, and they seemed to take the video in the fair spirit it was intended. And I gave them a nice reply. And then they removed it. I assume they didn't want to get in trouble with someone didn't want to get in trouble with someone's boss, I assume. So, but I don't think Sweetwater has any ill intent or is trying to rip anyone off. I just question the actual values of those mods. Hey, Greg, heard me say that polyester coupling caps are fine, but given a similar price for polystyrene, would I still prefer polyester? Well, polystyrene are usually only available in the picofarad ranges, and they're very prone to microphonics, and the leads are usually very fragile. I almost never use polystyrene. Unless you meant polypropylene. I prefer the sound of polyester to polypropylene in an amp, but there's nothing wrong with using polypropylene. But polystyrene, that's a tricky one. Yeah, you're gonna have to do a lot of shock mounting, a lot of goop to keep it from making a lot of noise. What would be a basic set of tools for an amp build? Well, you're going to need an adjustable spanner, adjustable wrench. So, you know, best to have a whole set of sockets and, you know, metric and standard sockets for nuts and stuff, but lacking that, an adjustable wrench. You've seen me use that before. A relatively small size. You're going to need a soldering iron. I would recommend a temperature controlled soldering station like the Hakko, is it 888D or whatever's replaced on the market. I would not recommend like a 35 or 40 watt pencil iron that you get at Home Depot or similar. You're not going to have much control over the temperature, and you're not going to be able to. You can do good work with it. Lord knows a lot of us started out with that, but it makes it really hard. You're going to need some good solder, whether that's lead-free or leaded is up to you. You're going to need some way to remove solder. I like the braid better than the solder sucker. I use a solder sucker to get the most of it out, then I use the braid to get all the little bits out. Later you can get a desoldering station if you want. If you want to know what braid I use, is in the description for all the videos. There is bad braid on the market. That's a good braid, and it works with lead-free and leaded. You're going to need, the stuff I use the most, a set of needle nose pliers that are fine tipped, but not so fine tipped that they bend or wiggle. You're going to need usually a flathead screwdriver, a smallish flathead screwdriver, like a number 1 or smaller, and then a number 2. Number 1 and number 2 flathead and Phillips head screwdrivers, and a number 3 Phillips head or what's the term? The other one that looks like a Phillips, but everyone tells me it's not a Phillips, and how dare I use a Phillips on it? Anyway, that kind of stuff. I really like having a chopstick, and it can literally be just a chopstick from Chinese takeout, wooden or plastic. Anything else you're really going to need? A scope is really nice, but a meter is Posidrive. Thanks, Pastor, and others. While a scope is nice, the meter is a lot less expensive and will get most of the information you need. So if you're just starting up, I wouldn't say spend $300 on a scope when you can spend $20-30 on a meter. And anything else? Basic tools for an amp build. Oh yeah, wire snips. And wire strippers. These probably get the most use on my bench. So I need to replace these because they've gotten chewed up and they're beginning to get a little bit dull, but these are Southwire. They're not extraordinarily high quality, but they do the job for stripping wire. Some old Craftsman needle nose. They're just thick enough to have some strength to them. You know, I can actually grip something and they won't bend, but they're small enough I can get into someplace. Notice the well-insulated handles and wire snippers. That's where you spend your money. These are some German ones. What's the brand here? Excelite. These are like $40, and they are flush cutting snippers, so I can really get down and cut something flush, and they're very sharp, and I only use them for wire leads. Don't use them for your guitar strings. Guitar strings will put a notch in your expensive snippers. That's the core stuff you need. Let's see. And it scrolled on me. Let's make sure I'm not missing. All right, that was that. Josh Stevens is playing a Strat through his 800. Nice. Yeah, I thought Sweetwater, whoever it was at Sweetwater deserves a lot of credit for posting on that. I was sorry to see the post disappear, but I can understand. Like I said, humorously, I hope, his username was Smells Like a Foot. So it's not like I could call Sweetwater and say, "Hey, let me speak to Smells Like a Foot." But I've got a Sweetwater rep. Actually, he's been very nice, very helpful, navigating various options related to the studio stuff. and he'll put me in touch with whoever I need to talk to at that department. And I'll probably give him a call Monday, Tuesday. Hey, Amlet Socks, that's that Sweetwater modded 65 deluxe reverb, which is no longer so much Sweetwater modded as me modded. Me modded is a weird thing to say. Little things about their work bothered me. It's not worth putting in a video, but right here where the master volume is, you can't really see it, but right here in this area where the master volume is, I've got a chicken head there, like I mentioned. This is where Fender's got a quality inspection. Now, if you remove it, the warranty's voided kind of thing. It's one of those like hologram stickers, and if you try to peel the sticker off, most of it sticks to the metal anyway. And Sweetwater got about 60% of it off and left all the stickum, and then they had their 16 millimeter D shaft pot with a push-on knob, and the push-on knob was really hard to remove. I replaced it with a 24 millimeter pot and a set screw chicken head, so you can feel it from reaching around on stage. But I used some Goo Gone and got the rest of that stickum off, so it doesn't look quite so, when you have a sticky surface on the back of an amp, 6 months later, that's going to be just black with dust and dirt and stuff. Just get things clean, people. It matters in its own way. But I wasn't thrilled with the work that they did. It wasn't bad work. Nothing was made worse. It just wasn't the kind of work that I thought would hold up long term. Hey, Almirano. In Silverface amps, can I simply move the cathode bypass caps back to the board from the current location and follow the layout from AB763? You can. It can be a little bit tricky on some of the Silverfaces that had the push-pull reverb boost circuit. You need, hopefully, removing that reverb boost circuit and putting it back to a standard. But yes, you can do it. Sometimes you have to be creative about how you use the existing eyelets to make it that way. But I do it almost every Silverface. It had a 76 Pro Reverb a week and a half ago. Didn't make it to the channel because I've been busy. I recreated the 70s setup because it was working fine. So I didn't move everything, but usually I do move everything. It's very common to have tremolo noises with the 70s wiring, whereas the 60s is usually thud and oddness free. What brand type of solder is my favorite? Hey, Spruce Creek. That kind of question, every video that I put up, I'm not refusing to answer the question. I'm not trying to make you feel bad or anything, but every video that I put up, let me get one of those up on screen to show this. I don't think people pay attention to everything I put up, which is kind of frustrating sometimes. I never know really what to do and what not to do, but all right, share this just a second. Here you go. In every video, in the description, there's a description for the video. Then I have all these dashes. Then I have, these are the things I get asked about a lot. The AmpTech gear used, and right there is Kester 6040 solder. Now I use a 0.031 because I like the flexibility that it gives me. Let me close this again. I like the flexibility that the small diameter gives me, and if I need more solder at once, I can just double it over or twist it over on itself and make the 0.031 into 0.062. I used to have both kinds, but as solder got more expensive and I found myself almost always going to the 0.031, I just decided just to stock the one and double it up when I need to have more flow at once. No, it's not your bad, Spruce Creek. It's just I used to get asked that question all the time, and so I try to put questions like that in the descriptions of all the videos. So if you want to know what microphones I'm using, even what lights I'm using, let alone the primary gear for the amp repairs, that's all on there. So it's not because there's anything wrong with you asking it, but I get tired of answering the same questions again and again. So yeah, I mean, except for the soldering stuff, the soldering specific stuff, the rest of it, if you've been a homeowner if, at the risk of being sexist or stereotypical, if you're a man over the age of 30 who's owned a home, you probably already have all those tools because you need them for something else. And a lot of women, not my mother, but a lot of women. Hey, I'd love to see Sweetwater improve what they're doing. I know that for them, it's a cost benefit analysis. How much time do they want to spend on it? I think a better use of Sweetwater's effort would be to contact Fender and say, "Hey, make them like this guy said to begin with." Because I basically in that Sweetwater review, I was giving Sweetwater all the secrets. Here's the golden ticket. Here's how to make this thing bulletproof. And Fender could do it too. And a company like Sweetwater has a clout to say, look, we know that we would sell more of these and have much happier customers if you build them to this spec, change the spec, build them right. Fender is not going to listen to me. It doesn't matter if I'm right or not. But Fender would listen to one of their largest buyers, one of their largest clients. The people, Sweetwater is one of the market, the clients for Fender sales that Fender can rely on. We're going to have X amount of money coming in every year, no matter what we make from Sweetwater, but we need to keep them happy. And Sweetwater serves a great role for companies like Fender as market research because they're actually talking to the customers all the time. And Sweetwater can say, "Hey, you put out 7 different Strat models in the last 6 months. Only 2 of them sold." I think Sweetwater, for a large company, does care. Hey, Greg, East Central Florida. Are there any amp techs in your area that I could recommend? I don't know anyone there, but in the last live stream, someone was asking about techs in the north of Florida, which is not too far from you. And my buddy Brad had put some names up there. So look in last week's stream. That was in the Gainesville and further south area, Gainesville to the coast. But I don't know anyone off the top of my head. Sorry. Okay, we're caught up with questions for once. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'd love for Sweetwater to really care. I'd love for Fender to really care. I'd also like to have $1 million and a yacht. Hey, Vinicius. My name is Elmer Fudd, billionaire. I own a mansion and a yacht. That's not very good, Elmer Fudd, but that's probably okay. Yeah, I mean, they have enough oomph, as you say. They can say, make the Sweetwater edition this, or and they've been doing that kind of thing with Fender. With hey, these are burgundy and these are tweed Princetons and stuff. But it'd be nice if they could influence beyond the cosmetic. They keep making cosmetic changes, like this brand new Deluxe Reverb reissue. The PCB for the pots and the PCB for the filter caps are now black PCBs with a black conformal coating. And the PCB for the main board is the same pale green it's always been. But that's what Fender's been doing, is they're making different colored versions on the inside of the board, but the circuit doesn't change, or doesn't change dramatically. Like the Blues Junior, they have 3 generations of Blues Juniors that all have pretty much the same mistake, though the first generation was too dark. And then they have the Blues Junior 4, which confusingly is either the same thing as the Blues Junior 3 with cheaper powder coat versus chrome on the control panel, or it's a cathode bias version of the amp, still called the Blues Junior 4. So I don't know if you buy a Blues Junior 4 if you know necessarily which version you're getting, cathode or fixed. But the fixed bias is biased as if it's cathode bias, and the cathode bias is biased as if it's fixed bias. So neither amp sounds very good, and the fixed bias version tends to burn. But On the outside, they make them in different colors, and they change PCB colors and say, "Ooh, progress," which is frustrating. The stock 65 reissue. If you make no mods, just move the heaters directly to the octal sockets and bypass the fuses, and you have to add an artificial center tap, and move the screen grid resistors to the octal sockets, and then tighten all the hardware. It's a really good sounding amp. And if you replace the C12K, you've got an amp that'll hang with an actual 65 Fender reissue. I mean, not actual 65 Deluxe Reverb. I've done it. Each amp through the same speaker sounds remarkably the same. But in stock form, with loose hardware and things that like to catch on fire, and a speaker that sounds like this. All right, well, I'll wait for any other amp questions. What have y'all been up to? Tell me something interesting about your week. It's always fun doing this because there's a delay between when I say something and you hear it, and then there's a delay between you type something and I can get a chance to read it. So we're getting closer to a real time back and forth. But 5150 Forevermore just got back from Greece. Where in Greece did you go? Martin, you're watching American politics. I am so sorry. That's awful. I wish we had something better or could change the channel for you. I am really tired of the same old show. The villains are just so transparent and predictable. Just got a Synergy head with 4 modules. Cool. And Andy's house smells like chili. Well, I hope you're making chili. Otherwise, it could be a sign of a stroke. What do I think of Bad Cat amps? I'm not a big fan of them. I'm not a big fan of Bad Cat or Matchless. They're overbuilt in ways that don't benefit a player. They're biased too hot, the ones that are cathode biased. And they're just amalgamations of existing Marshall and Vox and Fender things. Now, if you got one, you love it, that's great. And I've heard better things about some of the newer Bad Cats. They've got a new head engineer, apparently. I've not seen any of the newer ones, but Bad Cat has always been, from a text perspective, more marketing than reality. Let's see, 5150 got back from Crete. Great. Where in Crete? I would love to go to Crete. Brett's about to go get another big old cab for a super bass. Yeah, you're gonna need as many cabs as possible. Matthew just got back from Mexico City. Oh yeah, I so want to go to Mexico City. I'm hoping that the things in the United States get sane and kind again, and so that I could go to Mexico City with somewhat approaching a clean conscience. Because right now, I don't want to be representing the actions of our government, especially against the people of Central and South America. I don't want to go there as a tourist while we're profiting off killing and ruining their lives. So I would personally not feel right going there right now. I would love to be able to have things get to a point where I could go with a clean conscience. And that's my choice. I'm not saying what anyone else should feel, but I would love to go to Mexico City. I'd love to go to Oaxaca someday. Greg Meyer just got a 345 Marcus King. Nice. I love a 345. Man, that reflecting pool, Martin, oh my God. Who didn't see that one coming? Because they either had to do it this time or they had to absolutely embarrass themselves in court, potentially lie to judges and mislead jurors, and people would risk it being disbarred. So, yeah, it's a... man, that's the sad thing about they're openly criminal and they just lie thinking with impunity, and then they're surprised when people say, excuse me, that's complete and utter bullshit. No one believed that. Certainly no judge or juror ever would. Nice. Cupcakes always make things better. My wife and I love cupcakes because she likes frosting and I like cake. So I get a cupcake. She eats all the frosting off it, and then I have the part that tastes good. If it were up to me, there would be no icing or frosting in the world, just cake. Brian's running the sound for a bunch of acoustic acts. Nice. Classical guitar trio. Well, watch out on doing the loud indie rock shows so you still have the ears for the acoustic gigs. I would love to go to Greece. I'd love to go to Crete. I'd love to go to Mexico. I'd love to go almost anywhere. Well, cuisine dependent. There are cultures that I would love to visit that I don't know if I could eat there. I'm alone in America these days of not being able to eat Thai or Vietnamese food, or and as much as I'd love to go to Cambodia, for instance, I imagine the food is very similar. Now that is not anything me judging those cultures. I just don't like. I cannot eat the flavor profiles of their food. I can't do lemongrass. I can't do cilantro. So, and I can't do fish sauce. You know, so that's me. That's my feeling, not theirs. But I'd love to see those countries. Yeah, 50s Hoffman hi-fi amp. You want to convert to guitar? Use same tube component as an early AC15. Man, I've tried that. You're better off buying a AC15 build kit from Mojo Tone or someplace. The conversion amps are never ever what you expect them to be. The all those little hi-fi boxes are just too cramped to build something that's really going to sound fantastic. I've stopped. I've started refusing to do that, especially on the damn Filmo sounds. If you want a 5e3, let me build you a 5e3. I'm not going to start in the so far away from the goal that I'll never get there, or if I get there, it's going to cost a lot of money and have a lot of compromises along the way. Hey, Robbie F. Thank you very much, Emilio. I would love to, and I think you know that many of us, probably 51% of us at least, even at the time, thought this was insane and awful. And in a sane world, everyone who's putting people in jail would now be the people in jail. We would deport him, but no one would want him. Hey, Earthquaker Day, cool. Hope you had fun. Get myself a hat with a Canadian flag on it. Well, two things. First of all, I don't wear hats. Second of all, I don't want to piss off Canada either. We've done enough bad things. Not as many bad things to Canada as we have to our friends to the south, but not for lack of desire on the part of El Farto. It's just an embarrassing time. And Cuba as well. I mean, I would love to go to Cuba. But just by the nature of where I was lucky enough to be born, I guess, I would feel very wrong going there right now. Colombia or Colombia? Whew. Yeah, the Marshall Plan. What's the best way to put this? What a, you know, August 45, the world was in such a terrible place. And it's amazing that the Marshall Plan and all the rebuilding countries in Western Europe came together in such a way that we had a century of peace and progress for Western Europe. Then after 91, Eastern Europe was able to join, and that Japan was transformed into, a fantastic place. So many wise, careful, measured decisions went into all that, and now it's all being undone on the whims of morons. You know, if you read the Federalist Papers here, the draft, the framers of the Constitution. It's not like they just received them in stone tablets from God. They've argued and they argued. And you read Madison versus Monroe, and all these brilliant minds really wrestling with these ideas. And now all that's we're being told that's not necessary because we've got a very stable genius who knows better than anyone else. I mean, he would have fit right in 1944, but he would have been in a bunker by 45. In Rio, nice. Hey, Matt, are there any mods I would suggest to the V2 gain stage in an AA864, AB165 basement to add versatility, perhaps change resistor to a pot to adjust the amount of gain, or a bypass switch? Well, there are two things you can do. You can either bypass that gain stage entirely, which would give you basically the gains of a normal channel of a reverb fender. It'd be fairly easy to bypass that gain stage entirely if you were to sacrifice one of the channels of the amp, because it's also a mixer. So you would have to have only one. Well, I guess with a probably some way to do it with a double pole, double throw switch that you could have the mixer be AC into the input of the phase inverter and bypass that gain stage, or you can just greatly reduce the value of the local negative feedback resistor there, which is I believe a 470K, which will give you a lot, which will clean up that stage an awful lot. That'll probably be the easier way to do it. I wouldn't put that on a pot necessarily because there is voltage across that local negative feedback from the plate to the grid there. But you could. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering straight that's a 470. Okay, let me call something up real quick. Might be good to let everyone play along at home. Let's see. All right, just a second. I've been mentally doing other things than amps for the last 3 weeks, so I don't want to misremember something and give you bad advice. Let's see. Let's open up the AB165. Yeah, okay, let me make it larger. Someone was telling me the other day I just needed to hit Control Plus. That's true to a large extent, but there's a limit to it, and it cycles back and forth. All right, let me call up the schematic here. All right, this 470K here, that's your local negative feedback between the plate and the grid of V2, the mixing stage. If you increase that, you get a train wreck, and you get a ton more gain out of that. If you decrease it, you will get less gain out of that stage, but at the same time, if you decrease it too much, it'll be unstable. So if you wanted to be able to switch back and forth, you could decrease just the 470K. You want to play with the cathode or plate values at the same time. Let me look at this real quick. So we've got DC here linked to this. Being a complicated wiring thing, because basically you'd want to have these 200K, these two 220K resistors, this junction, bypass all of this and join up to this 0.1 microfarad cap at the phase inverter input and disconnect here and disconnect these. So that could be done. That would bypass this gain stage entirely for a tremendous amount of gain reduction, or you could put a switched resistor in parallel with this 470K to get to some lower value, which would keep this whole stage in the circuit, but it would greatly reduce the gain of it. That, or you could also, alternatively, and maybe even better, between this 10 nanofarad coupling cap and this 470K to ground here, you could put in another resistor, 1 meg to 470K, and make that switched, because that's the grid, that's AC. So you just would be switching in a voltage divider with the existing 470K and removing that voltage divider. That'd be another option to do. That'd be probably the least intrusive, actually. Well, no, the resistor across the negative feedback would be non-intrusive. Either switch across here to put another resistor in parallel, or add a resistor in series here after the 10 before the 470K grid leak, and that way you'd have a voltage divider here. So whatever gain was present would be dropped here. Those are the two ways to do it pretty easily. Hope that didn't leave everyone else too in the weeds, but that's what I would suggest. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I feel awful about how awful it is in Cuba right now. I feel how awful for how bad it is in Mississippi right now too. That's one of the things they don't tell you. You go to rural Mississippi, it's not much better off than Cuba. Cuba. No, they don't taste like cake because the surface area is too great. But cupcakes are better than no cakes. I do prefer real cake. And with a real cake, you can have a little bit of icing or frosting if it's good and is done well. But in America, cupcakes are about that big, and then they have that much frosting on top, like a pound of sugar and fat on top of a bare remnant of cake. And I don't get it. You lost your favorite pick. That's a terrible thing. So I've been to Chicago Music Exchange once. I've gotten to the point where I've got everything that I want. You know, when I go to Nashville, I step into Carter's or Groons. I no longer feel the lust. So Nikki and I are thinking about going to Chicago come October for a weekend. I have no inclination to go visit Chicago Music Exchange, but the first couple times you're in there, it's awesome. It's kind of like going to NAMM. You think it's going to be everything you ever dreamed about, and then you're like, oh my God, it's really loud. I'm tired of being on my feet, and everyone's telling me that everything's great. Chicago Music Exchange is a lot better than NAMM, but a little bit of that hint. You know, the dream made real, and then you're like, oh. Ah, I hope you got a chance to do more than just hang out on an army base. Well, Martin, that's the thing. You can indict a ham sandwich, and that is literally that grand jury was presented with false information, and so there was an indictment because it's a one-sided process. Um, uh, it indicted is a whole lot different than convicted, as we all discovered. That is the very essence of the ham sandwich indictment. I ate half a box of Dolly Parton brownies. Just saying. Um, I don't know if that's a pot reference. I I don't know that I didn't know that Dolly made and sold brownies. Yeah, Stanley, I will be. Sorry, this is the past couple of weeks I've been crazy busy dealing with family stuff. But yeah, I saw your email. I would love to look at your 65 Deluxe Reverb. I'll give you a call. Sorry, I've just been in hospitals and doctors' offices and specialist offices, or helping my mother take care of herself and going to the grocery store for her, and a bunch of chores and stuff. My life has not been my own for the past couple weeks. Oh man, I think so do we all. Satchmo, I'm working on Zener reference MOSFET regulate B plus and P channel MOSFET reverse the polarity of the Zener diode, add in an opto isolator to Qs plus relay to protect the amp from no or low bias voltage. Well, I could see that being really crucial for a very high-powered solid-state amp. But I just don't see the need usually for a tube amp. Just watch your Zener reference MOSFETs as far as heat management goes, because I've had so many fairly long-term failures with MOSFETs regulated by Zeners, where the MOSFET should have been fine with the temperatures present on the operating conditions, with massive amounts of heat sinking. And, it's not always practical to set up a little brushless fan and one of those special superconductor couplers, but I think the MOSFET regulated by a Zener trick is fantastic until the reality of MOSFET heater failure kicks in. So I would just hate for you to have a protection circuit that fails with the rest of the circuit relying on that protection circuit. But you're very good at what you do, so I might have already said too much. I think you probably already know all that. I can only relate my own experiences. Hey, Daria, my 68 Pro Reverb issue developed a rushing water noise after 30 minutes. Standby stops it. Is this tech-only territory since voltage or anything safe to check beyond loose hardware tubes? That's almost guaranteed to be a tube in a brand new amp. You probably got one bad preamp tube. I think every person who buys a tube amp for the first time should come with a spare 12AX7 just so you can test that out. It's most likely just going to be a bad tube. You can tell if it's affected by the channel volume. If it's affected by the channel volume, it's V1. If it's not affected by the channel volume, it's going to be one of the later tubes or the phase inverter tube. Is it in the is it affected does it go away if you turn down the reverb? It's the reverb recovery tube or the reverb driver tube, et cetera, et cetera. But it's probably going to be a tube. Oh, I'm glad you chose to go. I would have very mixed feelings about it. And I wouldn't want to have a conversation with someone saying, or I say, your country is so beautiful, I love it being here. And then they say, well, why are you doing X, Y, and Z? And then I'm not doing it. But nice one, Satchmo. Hey there. I can't pronounce your name, but I'm glad to see you again. NOS tubes, new old stock tubes, sometimes they're worth it, sometimes they're not. I have been buying new old stock Joint Army-Navy surplus 12AT7s for clients for the past several years. They're military spec, made by Philips in the 70s. Better tube than is made today, and they're selling for about $35 each. Great option. I've also been buying for clients Joint Army-Navy 70s surplus 5U4GBs, about $40. Much better quality rectifier tube than anything currently made. Great. I see people buying used RCA 7025s for $100 or new old stock RCA 6L6s for $300. And I think that's insane because there's no guarantee that those old tubes are any better than current production tubes. There's no warranty with such a thing. You don't know what you're going to get. And the prices for the ones which are still meeting spec are insane. So in the case of a 5Y3 or a 5U4GB or a 12AT7, where I know what the spec is and I know that there's nothing wrong with these tubes. They're just big, big military lot surplus purchase. That's great. And the price reflects reality. $35 for a tube, not $350 for a gamble. And there are a lot of people out there trying to sell you new old stock tubes, and they're promising they will paint your house, they will get you laid, they'll make you look cool. It's got to separate you from your cash, definitely. As to the rest of it, there's no way of knowing. I know Timothy, but you spelled it above as Columbia, not Colombia. So welcome. I would love to go to Scotland. I would absolutely love to go to Scotland, Martin. One of the proudest achievements of my life. I was at a after party for a concert in Nashville, and one of the guys that was following the band around was from Glasgow, and I hung out with him for about an hour and a half, and he was just rip-roaring drunk, and I understood about 90% of what the drunk off his ass Glaswegian was saying, and I think I was translating for the rest of the room. So all those years watching the BBC paid off. Nice, William. Cool. The Purple Nightmare. Yeah, man. It's tough. Hey, Harry, you get your own live stream every Saturday where 300 people typically want to hear what you have to say, then we'll all hear your opinion too. I have to be honest about this, especially given the fact that the country is being run by fucking morons and the fucking morons who support them. So that's my side opinion. Dang, Richard, I'm sorry to hear that. Hope everything comes out all right. Hopefully it's just pneumonia. It's not a sentence people say very often. As far as sonic cleaners go, are non-wax caps safe to put in them? Only the leads. I would never put any electrical components in the sonic cleaners that I have. I use them for knobs. I use them for washers and nuts and stuff like that. You can, I suppose, if you were to put them, fill it with nothing but distilled water, you could do a whole board. I think Brad's done that. I've not done it. I've not needed to. I assume if you don't have a wax cap or something with an epoxy seal that's cracked, if you use distilled water and just let it dry thoroughly, I'm sure it'd be fine. I just have not. Interested in my recommendations for an overdrive or two that best matches a Silverface twin reverb. Well, that's really a tricky one because that's picking out your favorite flavors of ice cream for you, and no one can do that. You've just got to go try them, and for your sake, I hope that your choice is not bubblegum. But especially with a twin reverb, overdrive pairing can be really tricky because it can get the highs can get a little bit fizzy for some people, and what's fizzy for one person is perfect for another person. He's got that nice clarity. And the other person's like, that's the sound I want. It's smooth. The other one's like, smooth. It's just dark and doesn't have any definition. So play as many as possible. See what you like, because that's the real answer, not what some guy on the internet says. I'll tell you if something's made like shit or will catch on fire or whatever, but I can't tell you what sounds like, especially with overdrive pedals into a twin reverb. That is just Danger Will Robinson territory. So go try a bunch. Would adding a 500K pot between the 10 nanofarad cap and 470K ground adjust the strength of signal? Yeah. That was You could do it with a pot versus a resistor. You just wire the pot as a variable resistor. That would give you basically a variable. It would give you a volume pot to turn that stage down. It would just be wired with a variable resistor in line with an existing static 470K to ground. You could also just replace that 470K to ground with a 500K pot going to ground and feed the wiper of the pot to the grid of the tube, which is exactly what you find in other fenders, because there's no DC on that stage there. It's after that 10 nanofarad coupling cap, and the grid leak is also the ground path for the cap. So yeah, you could just replace that 470K to ground with a 500K pot if you wanted to do a pot versus a switch. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. It's always tricky working out your ideas in real time. How to make a Vox normal channel less dull? You got your 4.7. Okay. You can. I always decrease the coupling cap on the normal channel of a non-vintage Vox to at least 0.022, not to 0.047. So 22 nanofarad. But you can go down to as far as 2 nanofarad, or the 2.2, which is the same as what you'd find in, say, an AC15 when you engage the bright switch, like a 62 AC15. 4.7 to 2.2 is a pretty good range to play with, but just decreasing it from 47 to 22 really helps a lot because it sounds more balanced. And then you can always add another bright cap on the volume pot. You can put 120 picofarad bright cap on the volume pot and change the coupling cap to a 22. You probably find that that sounds really nice. It's not too bright. It's not too boomy. It's got lots of everything that I like. That's what I would suggest. No problem, Bobby boy. Thanks, man. I try. She called 20 minutes before this started. She wanted me to bring her a cheeseburger. Said that she just had a craving for a cheeseburger and she didn't have the energy to go get one. So dumbass here just spent $25 to have someone DoorDash her a cheeseburger. I never pay the DoorDash tax, but she lives 25 minutes away. She needed a cheeseburger. I had this commitment. No, I'm not putting this stream above my mother. I've been with her 5 out of the last 7 days for hours and hours at a time. But I was like, really? You need a cheeseburger? Because I the other day I bought $18 worth of chicken salad to have in her fridge and made sure she had fresh mayo, fresh tomatoes, fresh whole wheat bread that she likes, so she could make a sandwich. But she wanted a cheeseburger. So there I go. Thank you very much, man. Are there better components in the more expensive Marshall? The DSL 100 HR seems like a great value, but I worry the important components are cheaper than the more expensive models. For the most part, no. The more expensive Marshalls have the same crap as the less expensive Marshalls. Potential exceptions are the reissue Marshalls, like the 87 reissue, the 800 reissue, the 59 reissue. In general, the components in those are better than the components in the rest of them. But in the last 30 years, the quality of the transformers used in those reissues keeps going farther and farther downhill. So in comparison to other amp companies, it's hard for me to recommend the Marshall reissue series. In comparison to other Marshalls, the Marshall reissue series is fantastic, as good as it gets. So take all that with as much salt as necessary. But yeah, there's no correlation between the price and the quality with Marshalls. Well, let us know how that project goes, Satchmo. I love calling you Satchmo. That's great. Satchmo Witty. Sounds like you ought to play harmonica. Nice. Yeah. Hey, Matt, when you change the layout, so V1, V2, then V3 is the mixer, it does make a lot more sense, and you're not moving your high gain stuff and your lower gain stuff back and forth across each other. The layout of the AB165 is nonsensical, but it can be improved as you did. There you go. Nice move. Hey, Victor, with all the videos JHS made with the Fumble and not a Dumble V2 pedal, Josh says the FET boost and a Dumble amp is a piezo pickup amp. I've not seen Josh's videos. I've not really paid much attention to the FET boost in the Dumble circuit. I've never played around with it or looked at it on the schematic. If it is, it is. It would make sense as it started that way. But remember, the Dumble itself started as a Bassman, as did the train wreck, and the Mesa Mark I started as a Princeton. So it's not. I will put Dumble and Trainwreck as good examples of starting from one thing and ending up with another. Same way I can say a Marshall started off as a copy of a Tweed Bassman and it turned into something else. Those are the good examples. And the Mesa did a similar thing with the Princeton and made a Mesa. But the end result is not always equivalent to the starting point. Well, Alan, I've only heard, the only Aberdeen accent that I've heard repeatedly is on occasional episodes of Shetland, to the best of my knowledge. So, man, some of the accents in Shetland, as they have characters who live out in the outer isles there, are pretty hard to understand. And some of the older characters in Vera, which is set in Northumbria, in and around Newcastle, those things get dense. And it's like the scene in Hot Fuzz where they've got the one local trying to understand what the local who works, the old local who works for the cops says, who can understand what the old West Country guy says. Yeah, it's amazing how many different accents there are in England. America is so homogenized in comparison. How do I bias a 68 Super Reverb? I've been trying to stop drinking. Been trying everything. Well, I bias a 68 Super Reverb without any alcohol whatsoever. And I bias a 68 exactly the same way I bias a 67. Biasing any fixed bias amp. But I don't give my bias methods out on the internet other than broad generalities, because I don't want anyone copying what they think I'm doing and electrocuting themselves, because I do it a dangerous way. Oh, Jesus, man. Is TB treatable these days? Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago we thought we would not have measles or TB or any of these things again, but freedom or something, or so I've been told. Apparently, we now have the freedom to have our children die and have all the food be unsafe. They just recalled bacon. Maybe that'll hit their constituency where it counts. Do I find myself troubled by owning too many things? Um, in the grand scheme of things, I don't own that many things. I see other people, don't have nearly as much stuff. I have very targeted stuff. My car is a 2016, I think 2016. Yeah, 2016 Volkswagen. No, it was 2017 Volkswagen Golf Turbo. It's a nice car, not an expensive car as cars goes these days. I don't own a lot of clothes. Don't own or wear any jewelry other than watches. I don't have any really mega expensive watches. I have watches that I enjoy, none of which are mega expensive. I may have too many guitars, except for the fact that each one of them has a role on the channel, and I like them. Do I have to drink my own urine? No, but it's sterile, and I like the taste. So it's easy to justify the guitars. But yeah, I could deal with two acoustics and two electrics if I had to, but I don't have to. I own a lot of gear to make the videos, but there's not a lot of pride and ownership in that. Oh, I've got two big studio lights. You know, this microphone's a nice microphone. It was $400. The one on that bench was $300. I've got some cameras, only one of which was expensive. The others are pretty much dirt cheap. And I only bought the expensive camera after I was sure I really, really loved it. And I started with a much cheaper model to make sure that it was going to work for me. There's certain things in life that you get what you pay for, but that camera is not an expensive camera as things 55-year-old men typically like to have. I don't golf. When we travel, we don't stay in lavish hotels, and we're very frugal. We like to travel. We like to go to see art. We like to go see real nature. We like to experience cultures as opposed to, we're not the kind of people who go to a resort and be pampered and have fruity cocktails by the pool for a weekend or a week or any of that nonsense. Basically, I'm never going to be cast on the White Lotus. I'm never going to be on Hoarders. And I'm okay with that. I think we've got an interesting little life together. My wife is fantastic. We enjoy each other's company, whether we're in Paris or at the grocery store. So, too many things? Yeah, by the measure of people in a lot of parts of the world, I have way too many things. By the American metric, I have probably too few things, and then someone wants to sell me something. The world is constantly telling me that I should be selling you things. I just had yet another email from AliExpress offering an amazing partnership opportunity to develop my brand with AliExpress. Fuck that. That stuff is garbage, and you guys don't come here for me to sell you garbage. Speaking of which, I gotta take a leak. I'll see you guys in 7 minutes. Hey, Satchmo, I'm sorry to hear about your shoulder. Not fun at all. Curtis loves the tone of pulling V2s on a AB165. You mean channel twos? V2 is shared by both channels on a AB165 Curtis. If you pull V2, you won't have any output from the amp. Sorry, but unless you have tremendous bleed and just like the sound of it. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. I think more of it should just be normal. I think it's getting to the point where being normal is a radical thought. It's a radical step. Protest by saying, "Wait a second, that's not at all how I was raised. It's not what was taught in Sunday school. It was not what I was taught in temple. Whatever. Not what my grandmother expected of me. Certainly not what my grandmother expected of me." That's not kind. That doesn't make anyone's life better. It doesn't make me rich either. So not even for selfish reasons would this be acceptable. This is just flat out stupid and wrong. I think that's where a lot of us are getting to. A kind of what's the best way to put it? Button-down revolutionaries. Thanks, Gregory. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Appreciate that. Certainly will help with the coffee fund because coffee keeps going up. When COVID hit and I had to find the cheapest coffee possible, I settled on Maxwell House because it was about $7, $6 sometimes. That was in 2020. 6 years later, it's typically $17, $18. I can usually get it on sale $14 or $15. We'll wait and buy 2 or 3. Just get that good old savings. But, it makes sense, really. So we have these, it's good that we have the tariffs on such things. So we're not having to make do with that nasty Colombian or Honduran coffee. We're getting good old Iowa coffee, right? Massachusetts. Love Vera and Shetland on PPS. Yeah, those two and Endeavor, and to a smaller degree, Luther are my favorite of that ilk. We're watching Grantchester right now, which I thought was going to be just some kind of like Father Brown Mysteries kind of nonsense, but it's not. And it's got Robs. I checked it out because it has Robson Green, who always makes interesting acting choices, and that's been very good. But we don't have cable per se, so we do everything with streaming. And I've cut back a lot of the streaming services, so I have ads on the other ones. But as much as I despise Jeff Bezos, the selection on Amazon Prime is the best use of our dollar. So the way I see it is I save money, and then with the money that I don't spend on that kind of stuff, I can donate to candidates that would piss Amazon off. I've never known that many people, A, to have actual Dumbles, but B, a lot of the people who have Dumbles don't use the FET input. Robin Ford is probably the most chased after Dumble tone. He uses the non-FET input, and on his amp, the overdrive hasn't worked in decades, and Howard's not there to fix it anymore, and he's afraid to have anyone else work on it, so he's just playing in the clean channel all the last several years with a Zendrive. He sounds just like himself. He could just use a super reverb. He'd still sound just like himself. Shh. He's a really good player. It's not always the amp. Ah, gotcha. Hence the evolution of Satchmo Eddie. Nice. Ooh, resistant forms of TB, not what we need. Well, man, Richard, I hope that all comes out to be well and that you are well. That is not something I would wish on. Well, I won't lie. My worst enemy is yes, you're nowhere near that list. Get better, man. Harry, you didn't raise my ire. It was just one of those things, man. Yeah. It gets. I should be totally neutral on everything because I'm just here to make the almighty dollar. I have more work already than I can keep up with most of the time. I'm not on doing the channel at this point to generate income, other than I get some money from the video themselves and the kind donations like the super chats today. But I'm not doing the videos to get more amp work in. I've got more amp work trying to come in than I can accept. So I don't have the pressure to be everyone's favorite, and I don't want to be a game show host. And so, especially as the world has gotten so bad, um, coinciding oddly with a certain occupant of Pennsylvania Avenue, I just don't feel any impetus to lie about it or pretend that it's normal. So if you disagree with me, that's fine. But I'd be glad to work on your amp as I have time, regardless about the quipping. And with my close friends, I quip much more nastily than that. That's one of the things that's interesting in my relationship with Nikki. We see each other more than we see anyone else, uh, except when she's in school. I see her students every day, but she gets paid for that. But we're each other's best friends. And my old best friend, a guy I was best friends with, died about 4 years ago, brain tumor. That process really sucked. But so I used to have a best friend that, part of having a best friend when you're a guy is you give each other shit. Now my best friend is a girl. And sometimes I forget and I give her shit because that's what you do with your best friend. You give him a ration of shit. You make fun of him. And she does not appreciate it. She doesn't know the rules. And then I have to apologize and shit. Man, chicks, man. What? Chicks can't hold the smoke. That's what it is. Let's see. Yeah, all these lovely anti-vaxxers making their children's life miserable and in some cases shorter. Of course, you see what Rand Paul was up to in Congress the other day. Miserable sons of bitches ought to be strung from the closest tree. Um, what was my most memorable live music experience, Memphis or abroad? Elvis Costello and the Imposters at the High Tone. Oh, 2018. They played 2 shows in town. Small club, not much bigger than my house. Crammed in, and I'm 10 feet from Elvis the whole time. And it's just a 4-piece band, and 2 of the other guys were in the attractions. The bass is not Bruce from the attractions. But they're just fantastic. They're just doing really good rock and roll at a very high level with great songs, and they know how to play together because they've been doing it so long. They're just a really good band in a very intimate space. That was utterly remarkable. Um, and just about every performance I've ever been lucky enough to see of Lyle Lovett and his large band is just exquisite. Oh, and twice now I've been lucky enough through the graces of a friend to take Nikki to see Billy Joel, and we had 4th row and 11th row seats. Um, and she absolutely loved that, and it made me look really good in her eyes. That was memorable. And plus, there were nice road trips associated with those. And I'm not the biggest Billy Joel fan, but it's a hell of a band he had, and they were great concerts. Thank you, Stuck in the Bit. Appreciate that. It's very kind of you. What is Hameritis, Satchmo? You mean like a fret end coming up? Yeah, William, we could be having such a nice century if we weren't having such a large percentage of the population insisting on going to the 19th century. They talk about how they want America to be like the 1950s again, and they don't mean 60% tax rate on corporations. They just mean Jim Crow and segregation and no women's or gay rights. That's all they mean. They don't care about any of the actual tax and business policies that enabled America to expand and to be so dominant in the post World War II world. Funny how they're Confederates. It's just the Confederacy is not gone. The Civil War did not end in 1865. It kind of went to sleep for a while. Here we are. Thank you, Bill. Oh, give me a call this weekend. I'll take care of I'll work your 77 Vibrolux in. And we'll talk about Larmars and mids and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I can fit you in, absolutely. Hey, Hamilton, that'd be very kind of you. I would love that. Let me see. Um, there it is. Not Moon Everyone, though. Let's see what I've been using. If I could request 5x5 is great, but 8 inches long would be all that's necessary. 12 inches long would be overkill for the desk. Thank you. That'd be very, very kind of you. Yeah, it does look kind of like what they did with the battleships. Yeah, that's a piano downtown, just outside over on South Main. I doubt it sounds very good, but it looks cool. It's up on an old loading dock area, and someone painted it zebra. I have never worked on an Echo Park amp. When I hear Echo Park, I think of the Line 6 delay pedal. I don't know anything about the Echo Park amp. Sorry. Hey, Jeff. Thank you, sir. Well, tell us, Jeff. When you use when you use a Dumble or a Dumble style, do you ever use the FET input? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. And how would you describe the FET input, and what situations would you use it? Most people tend not to because it can be noisier and a little bit hard on the attack. But tell us your experience. Jeff, for those of you who don't know, Jeff is a fantastic guitarist, fantastic educator, and he's got some really nice toys. But Jeff is kind of, in my mind, Jeff is a great example of my ideal client in that I make the things really ready to be used, and then the guys like Jeff take them and make them use them to the best ability. Robin uses it just for solos on recordings. Jeff is also friends with Robin Ford, though I didn't want to lead with that. Jeff plays with Robin Ford from time to time. He's pretty good. He's pretty good at that Get fella. Why does he choose to use that input for the solos on recordings? Because I know that he's been using live primarily the regular input. I mean, not many of us get to play actual Dumbles, or so it's always good to get the information from guys like Jeff. And hey, Lawrence, I'm planning for a practice amp build that will base on early 5C1 champ with a 6SJ7 preamp tube. Any much discussion online about this amp? Do I have an opinion on the circuit? I would say don't Don't worry about getting the 6S J7s. They're not really that much different in sound than a 12AX7. They're more expensive to buy. There's going to be a smaller supply of them, and they take up a lot more space in the chassis. I'm also not a huge fan of the 5C1. I do think that you should, if you're going to build a Champ, unless you just want to have something obscure for the sake of obscurity, build a regular 5F, etc. With the Novel tubes, 12AX, 12AY7, etc. But if you want to do the 6SJ, feel free. It's fine. Ah, okay. Because he likes reverb but hated the Dumbledator unit. This is more stuff to deal with, so his reverb and delay are going into the front end. Okay, gotcha. See, that's pragmatic. That's just making, saying, hey, here are my options. What's the simplest way to do it? You weren't here, Jeff, when I told people that Robin sounds great and Robin plays a Dumble, but there's no causality that he sounds great because he plays a Dumble. He's a great player and he could use a super reverb and sound like himself, and he has. The best an amp can ever do is never inhibit a player. If an amp lets you express your ideas, if an amp gives the sound that you're happy with consistently, it's a great amp. And an amp that you're always thinking about, man, I need to adjust the treble before the next song. Or, man, I can't get the reverb to sit right. That's not a great amp because it's taking you out of the playing space. You're thinking about the amp as opposed to, there it is. I got that harmonic again. All right, if I move this way, oh, there, it feeds back exactly right. And, ooh, if I just play a little softer, it cleans up. That's a great amp. But you almost have to be a great player to know the things a great amp can do for you. And if you're a great player, you've played enough crap amps along the way to say, I don't like that. Sometimes great players can't even articulate what they do and don't like, because a lot of great musicians were not that scholarly. Let's put it that way. They were not of the academic persuasion. So it's always been a fun thing for me to have very talented, intelligent clients, but who are not necessarily articulate as to describing what they're trying to do, let alone describing how amps work or what they're looking for. So I'm always there to be the translator between the artistic and the technical. I know this to be true. He sounded like him on my super lead. Yeah. And there are people, if you were to put that video up of Robben Ford on a super lead, you have 1 million views just to see that, oh, wait, yeah, he does sound like himself. Now that's the thing there, and the hands are where the tone is, yes, but there are things amps can do that disguise or lessen the impact of what your hands do. Like you have the best hands in the world into a great amp, into say a C12K, it's gonna sound not quite right. You have an amp where you just get a raspy, nasty sizzle on the decay. Doesn't matter how good the player is, you're going to hear the artifacts that are detracting from what they're trying to experience. So you need to get all these things together. You need to get everything as good as possible so those hands can really be heard. So I know it sounds like I'm saying two different things. It's really a more nuanced one thing. Have the best amp you can afford while realizing that the amp can only help you or get out of your, or get out of your way or get in your way. Hey, Queens Hillbilly, thank you very much. Follow up on basement question. Could you increase the mix resistor values to tame the V3 gain? Well, if you increase, You could increase the mix resistor values, but you're going to get into there's going to be some weird capacitance, impedance things if you do that. It's not really necessary, and if you are increasing them both by the same amount, you're really going to have pretty much the same gain because there's no voltage dropper to ground there because it's a DC mixer in that circuit. If you want to tame the V3 gain, see earlier in the stream, the part where I called up the AB165 schematic, I talked about the two easy ways to do that. And later I talked about just replacing a 470K grid link with a volume pot if you wanted to add a pot. But if you want it to be switched or just a simple change, you can either decrease the 470K local negative feedback, or you could add a resistor in series between the 10 nanofarad cap and the 470K to ground that feeds a grid of V3. Those are the easier ways to do it while leaving the mix resistors the way they are. Technically you could also decrease gain in each previous stage various ways, or just don't turn the volume of either channel up that much. But that amp has got so much, it kind of goes from nothing to, that's a nice little out clean, to, whoa, there comes overdrive. And Satchmo says, Yellow Welligan makes some exceptionally nice double clones. Yeah, Yellow does great work. I'll say I'm still friends with him. We used to talk a lot. We have not spoken in a good long while. We both had some life things go different directions. But his amps are extraordinarily expensive and extraordinarily well done. I'm not 100% on board with everything he does, and that everything he does is new old stock. So he only will get old Allen Bradleys or buy a box of old WEMA caps and sort through and find the 5 that match the spec he's looking for. So you are paying for a level of work, I think, beyond what is actually necessary. But if that makes you happy, he is definitely the guy for you. And he does great work. And a lot of the expense of Welligan stuff is that he has all the custom chassis made to a very high level, because you can't get those chassis off the shelf from any supplier. And he's got really nice cabinets made and everything done to a T. Used JCM 900 Mark III, 2500 amps, showed up on the market. Seller says, owned it for 10 years, hardly ever used it, selling for $750. Anything I should worry about it being so old? Not really worried about Marcus. Electrolytic caps tend to last 20 years. JCM 900, there's some places on the board where you can have some heat damage from some bridge rectifiers that are mounted too close to the board, and some diodes that can also cause some issues. In general, though, the 900 is pretty reliable. Also, the 900 has a capacitor-derived bias circuit where the capacitor can fail over time, and it's got 400-volt coupling caps on the phase inverter that can often become leaky. Best to replace those with 630-volt caps. So it's me like, hey, it's not a big deal. None of those are a big deal. Unless the amp has caught on fire, which is not that common. Even if the board's got a little toasting, it's usually fine. I would recommend a 900 to someone who likes the sound it does, because it can be made to be. If it was made in 1992, you can take it to a good tech, spend $300. It's 1992 again, and the clock starts again. And one of the things we can do is we can put a new bridge rectifier in with a lead link like that. So instead of having it up against the board, there's a air gap, and then the board doesn't catch on fire anymore. So there's nothing really scary in a 900, and I like them for those sounds. Thanks, Robbie. I try not to just be ranting, because I know that by this point I've driven off a lot of the more conservative, and the rest of you probably agree with me to some extent, so I don't want to just be yelling at the choir all the time. But at the same time, man, I've got some kind of voice in this world, and I feel like I have some responsibility to use it, even if it's just to say, hey, I would like to be in this labor camp when the day comes. Put me in with these people. Also, mine has harsh overtones on high notes above the 12th fret. Have I seen this? Would a 47 snubber on the phase inverter maybe help? Well, a .047 snubber on the phase inverter would not help because you would lose all high ends. Harsh overtones on high notes above the 12th fret. Is that with different speakers? I would make sure that it's not a bad set of speakers you're listening to. I'm trying to think. That amp's got a 500 picofarad input coupling cap. On the no, wait, no, it doesn't. Sorry, no, I was seeing the previous ones. That one's got a AB165's got the 1010. It could be a lot of things, but I don't think adding a snubber cap on the PI would really help. Maybe 100 to 220 or smaller 220 picofarad or smaller, 47 to 220 across the plates might help you. But there's so many weird things in an AB165 output section. The first thing I would do is I would ditch the 220K local negative feedback resistors from the plates to the back to the phase inverter plates. They go from the phase inverter plates to the plates of the 6L6s, which is a confusing sentence from plate to plate. There's 220K resistors on that little tag board going to the plate resistors on the board. That is a cause of a lot of instability in those amps. I would make sure that the amp's got grid leak resistors mounted that are in good condition, that measure the 1.5K, and make sure all your grounds are good. I would do all that long before I would look at any cap across the phase inverter plates. Yeah, Josh Hawley, in addition to all that idiocy and just vileness, he's also a fucking hypocrite. He was wearing a mask back in the day. Yeah, it's just the literal assault on learning. It's the literal assault on science. It's the literal assault on expertise. That's not how the world ever. It maketh me sad. Finish starts to delaminate right along the fretboard on hammer guitars. Ooh, I did not know that. I guess if you have a finish that goes over the edge of the fingerboard and over time the board dries out, yeah. But yeah, like you said, super glue can fix a lot of things. What are my most favorite and least favorite Vox AC amp? Hey, Dusty Zero, man. Most favorite are any 62 through 68 AC15 or AC30. Least favorite would be two categories for least favorite. AC10 Custom, because it's an absolute shit show and people are getting ripped off today. It's absolutely garbage and people are paying way too much for it because they're paying anything for it. And there's an entire cottage industry of telling people that it sounds better than the 15. And it's just pathetically untrue, impossible. In fact, if you look at the schematic and know how it's working, what you're hearing is the sound of bad op-amp clipping. And it's unreliable, has a terrible speaker, no room to put in a real speaker, it's built like shit, and the output section burns. So current production, ripping people off at this moment, the AC10 Custom. Historically, any of the Thomas Organ era solid state American Voxes were the worst ever. And I say this knowing that there's a whole bunch of late 70s and 80s PCB, reverb, everything, AC30s that don't deserve the name Vox. But the solid state Thomas organs were absolute garbage. Doesn't matter if it said Super Beetle, the Beatles never touched the damn things. Yes, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers had a wall of them on stage for their tours. They weren't plugged into anything. Behind that wall of Super Beatles were some Princetons and 5E3s and AC15s. Thinking about using PC Fab to make custom amp panels. Any gotchas with making all the hardware tight? Long shaft pots. I'm not sure. I've not looked into that yet. I know people are doing it because the fab is easy. I'm not for my own purposes. I'm not sure that the resolution of the graphics would be high enough to be worthwhile. And it depends on what the minimum thickness is, because you have to remember the thickness of whatever panel you're using and the thickness of that part of the chassis together. And there are only so many pot options on the market, and only so many bushing length. It's more the bushing length than the shaft length. So you're gonna have to do some more research on that, Rhythm and Bytes. Good to see you back, man. Appreciate that coffee. You should use cork yoga blocks to hold up amp chassis. Well, I don't like cork because it makes cork dust and then I sneeze forever. But I've been meaning to make some hardwood blocks for forever. As you can see, I've just been using these white shipping boxes because they're the right size, and when they're all folded together, they're just perfectly stiff enough. But I've been wanting to replace them with some hardwood because it's nicer and it looks more professional. But you see the guys with the amp cradle. If I were building 100 of one amp, I'd love to have an amp cradle. I can set it up, put the chassis in there, put it all together, put it to the side, so it's just very consistent. If I had to use an amp cradle for all the different amps that come in, I'd spend 20 minutes setting up the amp cradle for different dimensions and angles, and then having to do all this other stuff. So I just use blocks. It works just fine. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that, man. Well, look for a follow up maybe Monday. The amp's 90% done now. I've just got to do the shielded connections and do some testing. Then I'll probably make the video on it tomorrow, and it'll probably go live maybe tomorrow, probably Monday. Thank you very much. It is. Yeah, I think if you measure talent, yeah, Jeff is definitely someone to get starstruck over. He's a total mensch. He's a total normal guy, really laid back, very nice guy. I've had the fortune to call him a friend for the past year or so, and we call each other from time to time. And he's a rock star in talent, no rock star in attitude. Yeah, the Dumble mods that get published have caused an awful lot of amps to get damaged, an awful lot. But that's part of the joy, isn't it? Here's the thing. And for those of you who didn't see it when Jeff said it, he's talking about Robben Ford here. He's just as happy with a dialed in Super as he is on his Dumble. And there are few things nicer than a dialed in Super Reverb. And a dialed in Super Reverb, say you get a 67 and send it to a guy like me to restore it. Yeah, you're easily looking at spending $2,000 to $3,000 for the amp and $400 to $600 to get it made as good as possible. At which point, you've got an amp which is $3,000 to $4,000, which is still less than what that 67 would cost new, built to the same spec once you adjust for inflation, which still costs on the equivalent level of a comparable model of Two-Rock or other similar high-quality amp. Still a lot less than $40,000 and going up for something that just happens to say Dumble on it. And I'm kind of the feeling that unless you play at the level of a Jeff, of a Robin, of a Larry, it's embarrassing to be seen in public with a Dumble if you can't bring it. It's like showing up with a red and white and black striped guitar, but you can't play at the level of Van Halen. Put that thing away, man. It is. You show up with gear like that to a certain amount, zip, foot on the table. And if you don't have that, Don't do that. It won't end well for you. Hey, Robbie, thank you for spending your time with me. And that goes to all of you, not just to Robbie. Like I said at the beginning, if anyone goes back and sees the beginning of the stream, it's funny because I forgot that I had not pushed the magic button. So the stream was listed as unlisted. So I signed in to do the stream and nobody's here. I mean, just total crickets. I saw some tumbleweed go down the street. And I'm like, oh, duh. So this stream is nothing without you guys. Good, he's going to see Philip Sace at the Baked Potato, taking your son. That's nice. I'm not saying that Yellow's Dumbles clones are overpriced. I'm just saying, you know what, for those of you who think that you can get one for $1,500, no, but you get what you pay for. Yeah, he does crazy amounts of research into getting just the right this and just the right that. Hey, J Fops, I use the Electro-Harmonix 6v6s these days. That's what I've had the best luck with consistently. Now, that could change next week. 4 years, oh no, longer than that now. 2018, I would have told you JJ, and then they went as far as microphonics go. I can tell you to avoid the stuff that is currently labeled as TAD because they have conductive bases, which is sad. All right. Switch to the A864 Queen Sylvia. All right, you're on the way then. All right, you got 47. Now here's the thing, Queen Sylvia. If you copied the if you did the A864, did you use the 500 picofarad or the 1,000 picofarad input coupling cap for the AA864 power amp? Because I believe, let me double check again. I believe the stock AA864 used a 500 picofarad, which creates a very high impedance node because you've got the grid leak, the 1 meg grid leaks of the phase inverter, but you've got a 500 picofarad thing, and it can be prone to all kinds of nasty behavior there. If you change it to 1 nanofarad and 1,000 picofarad, magically gets better. We confirm that. Let's see, Baseman AA864. Like I said earlier, I've been thinking about other things for the past couple of weeks. I'm all about 500 picofarad on the stock. That small amount of, okay, good. It did help going to the 1K. Well, Queen Cell Billy, did you confirm that your 1.5K grid stoppers are good on the 6L6s, and be very, very sure that you have reversed the green and black wires on the speaker jack, so the black is going to ground, green is the positive, and be very sure that you remember to change the negative feedback resistor to 820 ohms, and that has a good connection, because sometimes the 100 ohm to ground, because it's a horizontally mounted resistor, can pull out at one end. You can have a weird behavior to the negative feedback. Since you mentioned that you had that high frequency thing happening at higher gain. Sorry, this is why it's difficult doing this. I have to ask a question of you guys for more information, because it can be a while before we get it back. So the back and forth is more of a back, and eventually a forth, and eventually a back. But we'll get through it together. If he won't send a video of it turning on and turning some knobs, he doesn't want to sell it. So if he's really going to be lazy, lowball him, see if he'll fall for, offer 200 less than he's asking, since he won't even take an iPhone video of turning it on. and be sure that you turn it on before you part with any cash. Well, Queens Hillbilly, I don't know what to tell you without having your amp on the bench. Satchmo might have some ideas, but yeah, you can also try increasing the grid stoppers. You can go as high as a 10K grid stopper and not really hear any difference. Um, um, 4.7K is usually as high as I'll go in a Fender, but you can go higher. If it's that, you can do that as a temporary thing just to see if that's part of the problem. It could just be a lead dress, could be a strange tube, but you've probably rolled all that kind of stuff. Any tips for fine tuning heater voltage if it's creeping up on 7 volts? Hey, Matthew Lynn. Yeah, pretty much you need to use a variac or other method to lower the mains. If it's creeping up on 7, you don't want it to be 6.8 or higher. You're going to have shorter tube life. Better to say, all right, well, gotta, if worst comes to worst, go buy a $100 uninterruptible power supply for a computer device. It'll do like 5 amps, and it'll have a switch for 110 or 120. You can switch to 110, bias the amp that way, and you always have 110 volts. And your heater voltage will drop down, and life will be good. You can also get a variac and vary it, or you can get a brown box and have a much smaller thing, but you spend a lot more money for it. But for a lot of guitar amps, a little uninterruptible power supply, as sold for computer supplies, does a really nice job of saying, yeah, up to 5 amps current, and it just got to stay at 110 volts, or just got to stay at 120 volts. Let's see. Do I ever use one of those heat showing thermometer guns to look for hot spots? No, I've thought about it. Thought about just, there's a thing you can get for your iPhone to let you do that. And one of my meters, if I were to buy the thermometer probe, can also do that. But I've never had a need for it. I have limited real estate here, and so I've learned very thoroughly not to confuse want with need. Wouldn't it be cool if is not the same thing as I need to be able to do X, Y, Z. I've never needed it, so I've not spent the money on it. I would probably get the lead for the probe, as opposed to necessarily doing it visually. Well, it depends on what the price for the thing, the little lens addition for the phone would be, and whether it would work with subsequent phones or only this model, in which case I'll just get the probe for the meter. Yeah, Satchmo, have you tried to fix a Thomas Morgan era solid state Vox where you got to buy 300 germanium transistors and sort through to find which ones have the HFE to match their blue spec versus their green spec or their yellow spec? It's a money pit. And at the end of it, it sounds like a solid state amp. People love that stuff because people love all kinds of weird stuff. 1/16 is okay thickness for a faceplate. Yeah, I try to use as small as possible. I like the aluminum faceplates, but yeah, you really need to, get some kind of CAD program. It doesn't have to be CAD. You can literally use Inkscape for this and just say, all right, I want something where I can draw everything out exactly this scale and say, all right, well, the chassis front plate is exactly 0.063 inches thick, and this faceplate that I want to use is supposed to be 0.032. Put that there, and the bushing is this long for this pot, and the average thickness of a star washer, the tooth washer is Y, and you can visualize it, and you can download technical drawings of pots and stuff at a 1-to-1 scale. That really helps, because sometimes you can think that ought to work, and then you spend a couple $100 getting everything together, and you're out a couple $100 because you thought that ought to work, and if you had just taken the time to really draw it and measure it out, you'd be like, ain't no way in hell that was ever going to work. Ask me how I know. Hey, Dusty Zero Man, how do I revoice an amp tone stack? I've got a video up on Fender Tone Stacks. I think it's called Fender Tone Stacks Beyond Analogy. And that's where I would point you to. That and if you have a PC, the Duncan Amps tone stack generator. It go to Google's to do Duncan Amps tone stack. You'll find it. I think it only works, pardon me, on PCs. But I've got a video called Fender Tone Stacks Beyond Analogy. I think it's in my Tech Tips playlist. That's about an hour's worth of exactly what you're asking. So I don't think I need to revisit that and try to sum it up in 5 minutes here. But I put a lot of time and effort into that. I think it should hold many of the answers you're looking for. Absolutely. You come. Hey, no, you come here. I'll get you some liquor. Y'all come and let us know, and we'll take you out to dinner. Love to meet you both. Absolutely. Do I know a source for a 500K amp volume pot that has detents? Where do I order my pots? Most pots with detents are linear taper, and so not useful for us. But I imagine if you were to go to Mauser or DigiKey, you would find pots 500K with detents. I think they'd all be linear taper, though. I don't usually buy my pots from either of those places. I usually buy them from CE Distribution, which is tubesandmore.com for non-commercial clients. Also Tube Depot. But I've never had a need for detents in a volume pot in most setups. Now, sometimes if you have a stereo power amp, that can be useful, but the pots with detents are rarely calibrated that closely. The tolerances are usually wide enough that 4 clicks on one is not exactly the same as 4 clicks on the other. A lot of times I will, when I can, like I did on the last stereo power amp that came in with that kind of issue, I put in a dual gang volume pot. And while each gang has slightly different total resistance, as a percentage of its travel, as in terms of a varivoltage divider, each side was matched, and and both channels went up and down exactly precisely. As I confirmed that with the scope. But I know that's not exactly the answer to your question, but I am unfamiliar with any audio taper detented pot. On that note, we're going to take another 7-minute intermission, and I'll catch you guys in just a few minutes. I appreciate you all being here and hanging out. Welcome back. I always try to say that kind of quietly for those of you who might have forgotten that they had their volume up. I don't want to be like, hey, and we're back, and then have people have heart attacks, as has happened. Dusty Zero Man, I see your questions there about your amps with too much low end. And I promise you, I'm really not brushing you off. That's too open-ended a question. I don't know what the amps they are. See my video on Fender tone stacks, but in a general sense, you need to. There are a lot of places in an amplifier where that stuff is affected, and it may not be the tone stack is where you need to go. But valvewizard.co.uk is a good resource for how things work. And if you really want the answer, he's got a book on preamp design, including voicing options and where and how you control the low end. And he's got some sample chapters up on his website. And you also need to understand resistor capacitance frequency filters, RC filters. And there are, there's tons of ways to learn that on the internet. But you really do need to dive in, because it's not just you just do this, because the answer is going to depend on the amp and depending on the preferences of the player. Let's see. Hey, Mike, ultralinear 135 twin, transformer dielectric looking leak. The voltages are correct. It's interesting that you think you've got a leak in the transformer. It might have just been discoloration in the sealant. Is it okay to use 7781A or KT66s in place of current production 6L6s? 7781A, I don't know without rewiring them, because I don't have that one memorized. KT66, quad of KT66s, you might have excessive heater current for the transformer's capability. I wouldn't mess with it, man. It is a twin. Just put 6L6s in it. I don't think you're going to get any huge difference going to something else. I mean, you could possibly even use like a KT77, but don't take my word on that. I'd have to look at the heater's current demands, etc. But in general, with a Fender, use what Fender spec'd, and the Fender spec 6L6s, and you get a quad of Tungsol 6L6 GC SDRs in there. You'll probably be very, very happy. 7581s, yeah, that would be fine. It's I'm trying to remember if the 7581 has to be wired differently, though. Don't remember off the top of my head. Sorry. Like I said, I've had a lot of non-amp stuff floating around in my brain lately. And some of the stuff I normally know is just not there. What are my thoughts on Marshall quality now versus Freeman amps quality? Well, that's kind of like a Yugo versus a Toyota. I'm not comparing Dave's amps to Toyotas in terms of being boring or anything, but in terms of, hey, you want a really reliable car that's going to make it 300,000 miles? Toyota's a pretty safe bet usually. Freemans are just infinitely better built than current Marshalls. It's not even a fair comparison. Hey, Bill, you got a aftermarket 2-button foot switch with LEDs for your deluxe reverb. Sounds great works great for the trim, but buzzes when the reverb is switched on. Any thoughts? They may not be shielding the reverb. Assume you don't have it, or you may have a battery in there causing all kinds of problems. The reverb switch on a foot switch for a Fender is just muting the grid of V4A. It just turns off the reverb by shunting that wire to ground, but that wire has to be shielded, otherwise you'll have all kinds of noise. And if there's any other circuitry because of a foot switch, it may not be doing that the way you want it to either. So I'm thinking it may have the wrong aftermarket foot switch, but it could just be a matter of, it's got a battery in there. We take the battery out. I don't need the LEDs, but I don't know which one you have. Yeah, there you go. Michael Smith is telling you the other Mike, what I was just saying. You need to really know all that spec, and I would be very hesitant with going with KT66s in that. How much background noise is acceptable in a 66 Super Reverb? I know that's subjective, but should all old amps have some background noise while idle? Thank you very much. In general, my goal when restoring these amps is so that as much as possible, you don't even know it's on until you play. Now, some Fender amps with the reverb circuit, there's always a little bit of a white noise in the background, just due to the nature of that 3 meg resistor bypass with a 10 picofarad. It's just going to have some level of hiss, but it should be so minute that you can just tell that the amp is on. There should be no hum, and that remaining noise should be so far below the level of the signal that when you play, you don't notice it at all. It should be almost completely silent, which is surprising to a lot of people. A lot of people think old amps are noisy, but it should be, I'm trying to think of anything comparable, well below the noise of your ceiling fan, assuming a quiet, balanced ceiling fan. Yeah, man, send me those pictures. I'd love to see them. I'd love to see old photographs. Fowler, Colorado, and Wagon Mountain, New Mexico. Yeah, send them. I wish I'd had a chance to get out into more of the desert when I was in Arizona, but I was trying to kind of geographically constrained to stay within a 20, 30-minute drive of my mother-in-law's house because I had to get back for family things. So I did not get to go as far afield as I would on my own. On my own, I'd still be out there, you know. But I'd love to see your photos. Thank you. When replacing filter caps on a Fender Hot Rod DeVille or Deluxe, can I recommend alternative values? What effect would this have on the playability of the amps? Thank you, man. Low tone, I don't think it's really necessary. The stock values are just fine. There's some places in the Hot Rod where you could decrease some cathode bypass cap values from, they've got like a 47 microfarad. I would change that to probably a 10 or 4.7. But there's no real issue with the filtering in those amps. There are some people who will tell you you need to get a bigger reservoir cap. Go to 220s instead of hundreds, or stick a 100 microfarad in the reservoir of your Blues Junior for more low end, and that's nonsense. You'll have a slightly higher B plus, but you won't have any more low end because you got a output transformer the size of this remote control with EL84s that don't have a lot of low end. That's the Blues Deluxe, the Blues Hot Rod. What's it called? Blues Junior, not the Hot Rod, but similar things. There's nothing wrong with the values of the stock filter caps in the Hot Rod series. The issue is that the Fender's using the cheapest of the cheap, and they fail. And if you look at the Hot Rod series, when it's working correctly, the filtering is pretty much that of a 60s Fender, which is kind of perfect for that style of amp. Yeah, that's you're describing the ideal, but I have found that except in very rare instances, there's always going to be a little bit of a white noise just because the reverb mixer, which is after the volume pot, and then the reverb mixer circuit itself has some degree of self noise, but it can be minimized. But it's hard to totally eliminate it. It's just so far in the background you just don't hear it in context of playing. Anthony Watt is building a Gibson 6BRF clone. I'm unfamiliar with that model. I think I had a 6B something a long time ago. It was from 1946. Should I add a 500K grid leak to the input side of the 6SN7PI, as the output from 6SJ7 direct from volume pot is way too much gain? Well, a grid leak won't. Well, yeah, it'll change the taper of the pot, and it'll change the high frequency pass frequency. Sorry, I'm not expressing myself well. You will lose lows as you turn the gain up. If you have a 500 picofarad, a 500K grid leak, in addition to the pot, if you want to really change the gain, you would put a series resistor ahead of the volume pot. So the volume pot with series resistance in front of it is just like saying, hey, I like the sound of this volume pot until it gets to 7. Let's say 7 is where it begins to get squirrely for you. Well, you say I've got a 1 meg pot. All right, well, 7 is going to be about 500K. And so, all right, basically 50% value. You can put 470K to 1 meg resistor in series ahead of that pot, and you will have the same amount of gain as on with the pot on 10 as the pot had on 7. But now you have doubled the impedance after a coupling cap typically, which means you're going to have a lot more low end and you're going to have a little bit more gain out of the preceding stage. So to keep it the same way it was, you would change that 1 meg pot to a 500K pot and put a 200, say a 330 to 470K resistor in series ahead of it. It's going to behave the same as the stock circuit as far as the total gain of the preceding stage, because the loading is going to be the same and your base response will be the same, but you will have, it basically can't go up above where it used to be at 7. You can actually, speaking of the Hot Rod DeVille Hot Rod Deluxe, you can see that's what Fender did in the Hot Rod series. They've got a 1 meg, I believe, no, a 250K audio taper volume per channel, but there's I think a 220K resistor or 470K resistor in series before it to limit that. Same kind of thing that Marshall did on the JCM 800 with the 1 meg pot with the 470K ahead of it, but that 470K in the Marshall has a bright cap across it, so they're slamming the highs. I'm getting off topic, just talking out loud at this point. That's where I'd look. I would look at adding series resistance ahead of it rather than just changing the taper. Have I ever had an amp with gain on 10 and volume on 0 and heard guitar bleed through the guitar speaker cabinet? So with the channel gain on at full and the master volume at 0, yeah, you can get bleed. You can get bleed just due to bad lead dress. You can get bleed if you have tubes which affect each other through the B+, which is not that common, but it does happen. And you can have bleed just because there is signal somewhere that's being picked up by a high impedance node that's too close. And when it comes to high impedance nodes, too close can be within a foot of. The issue that you need to say is, all right, so let's assume that this amp has a core amount of bleed. Well, it's rare that you would be ever using the amp with the gain all the way up. So if you never turn it above 8, do you hear it at 8? Or when you do, how low is that signal compared to the actual signal present when you do turn the master up? And what's the phase relation between them? So sometimes you'll have a little bit of bleed that kind of saps the strength of the core sound. Other times it's so far in the background you just don't hear it in practice. But it's also possible the lead dress, or you just replace some grid wires with some shielded wire and all that stuff goes away. You kind of have to know when it's worth it and when it's not, and it's hard to say. If it's British 50, you probably lead dress and need to have some shielding on your grids. Yeah, simple marks. I think, Alan there, Diego, gotcha. I think you're just hearing your transformer singing. Transformers do that, and if the speaker isn't that loud, you're going to hear the transformer. Usually, that's happening in the background of a lot of amps. You just don't hear it because the speaker is so loud. 5150s are really prone to that. You can hear a 5150 transformer singing merrily along, especially if you lower the master volume uh, so that the speakers in the room aren't as loud, it's not as distracting. But I'll tell you what, man, that feel that that transformer puts out, if you get a guitar pickup within 2 feet of it, you have Feedback City. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem, Seppo Marx. It's just one of those things that happens. Some people don't hear them, some people do. Uh, it could be that you need to tighten all the hardware and it'll go away, or maybe that transformer is just going to sing, but it's going to be so far behind the level of what's coming out of the speaker that you won't notice in practice. Wagon Mound still has 1920s semaphore railroad signals that were still functional and working on that track. Cool. The new pedestals are already there for when they finally conk out. Beautiful castings. I'd love to see those. I'm not a train spotter, but I like old things and I like mechanical devices. Holy cow, we're actually caught up. Let's see. I see many clones/kits for old Fender amps, but what about old Gibson amps from the 50s and 60s? Would any of those worth be rebuilding, or is it better left in the past compared to Fenders? Well, I've got a couple of different thoughts. No particular order. Number one, Fender won. Fender won the amp design and amp marketing game because Fender made better amps consistently than Gibson. For those of you who are about to argue with me, let me finish. Fender figured out how to make like 8, 10 different models based on one board that's populated the same with the exception of a few things. Changing one style, one basic chassis design, one basic cabinet design. It varied in the number of speakers. It varied whether there was a mids pot or 2 mids pot. It varied whether there was bright switches. It varied as far as the output tubes used, whether or not it had rectifier. But it's, a lot of models, with the exception of the Bassman, the Champ, and the Princeton, they were all variations on the same thing. So a very streamlined production, covering just about every sound that you would want to get given the musical styles of the time, for various budgets, various stage volumes, musical roles, etc. That sounded better than any of the competition. Let's take the real esoteric amps out of that. There's some really nice amps made at the time, but they were really boutique in the true sense. That could be serviced, that people could afford with a good dealer distribution network. Gibson started off pretty strong in terms of the marketing, but the Gibson amps that sound good, the ones from the mid and late 50s, are built horribly, where you have a board with components on that board, but on the other side of the board where you can't see, there are more components. And a brown glue used to hold everything in place. That brown glue becomes conductive. It's really hard to pick off when that happens. And in order to, and they used a lot of caps, really poor quality film caps that needed to be replaced. Now, Fender did too in the 50s. They used the yellow and red Astrons, which were garbage. And they said, oh, these are garbage. Let's stop using these. They went to the blue molded Ajax. Gibson really had a thing for those green caps that were terrible. So you get an old Gibson in, even the model that would sound good, like a GA18T. Great amp. Basically a 5E3 with trim. Pain in the butt to work on. And some of the Gibsons had really flimsy little tag boards. Some Gibsons had the build like an Ampeg, where you had the basically cardboard with all the eyelets, and then that was kind of super glued or epoxied to some blocks of wood that were glued to the cabinet, and their components on the other side. Terrible wiring, not well-built amps, hard to service. And then Gibson killed themselves by deciding that the sound of the 60s was going to be the sound of Trini Lopez, that everyone wanted to sound like they're playing in a Vegas lounge or a Holiday Inn or something. And so they started putting T-filters in all their amps so they could eliminate distortion everywhere and get a real nice bright sound, because everyone wanted them to use Gibson guitars, which had humbuckers and were still shipping with flat wounds at the time. So the amps started to get voiced in such a way that with modern strings on other guitars, they sound kind of thin to our ears. You get a 62 or later Gibson, it's got no gain, it's kind of got a thin sound, and you get rid of all the T filters, and it begins to wake up and become something really cool. But you don't have to undo half of what the company did to get a good sound out of an old Fender. It's kind of like now when you get a new Fender and you got to say, well, that's great. Let's undo the Fender mods, or, well, that's great. What would it sound like with real filter caps? What would it sound like if it didn't catch on fire? Back in the day, if you bought a Fender, it was good to go. And not just good to go, it was good to go on a world tour. Gibson never, ever reached that level of build quality, and they started making people sound like Trini Lopez just at a time when everyone wanted to sound like Jeff Beck. So that's why, of the Gibsons, the GA40 is cool. I don't know if I necessarily will want one, but they're kind of cool. The GA18 is the one that I like the best. And some of the earlier ones, like the GA40, that used pentode tubes, are a lot of fun. So they can be little fire breathers. But you can get a Mojo Tone chassis and build one of the good Gibsons in it. You don't have to have a dedicated Gibson kit if you're qualified to do this. I think most people make Fender kits because most people want to buy Fender kits. There's a demonstrated market for it, and they know that they're not going to have a bad investment if they start making them. But there are some really nice sounding Gibson amps out there, but they are not consistent or predictable. And Seppo says, Mojo is a GA5 clone. All right, look into that. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. Also, when on my scope and with an 8 ohm load gain on 10, volume on 7.5, 1K signal, the power transformer start making high pitched noise. Is this from dummy load? Yeah, because you're not hearing it through the speaker. If you heard that through the speaker, you'd be Chewbacca in Cloud City. You'd be 1 kilohertz, really loud. But you don't have a speaker, you have a dummy load, so you're hearing the output transformer singing. It would do that to some degree if you had a speaker, but because you're doing a dummy load, which is non-reactive, it's a hard operating condition for the transformer. So I would doc, it hurts when I do this. Gain on 10, volume 7.5, 1 kilohertz signal. First of all, when you're measuring things with your scope, usually you want to measure at the onset of distortion. So you would not normally have distortion with the volume at 7.5 and the gain on 10. You're well past the point of clipping, and you're getting some nasties. Are we getting images today? Oh, I don't really have anything new to show. I'm waiting. I was hoping to have some new things to show. I've got hopefully 72 shots done on film from my trip to Arizona earlier in the month, but my developer let some of their staff have summer vacations, the bastards, treating their staff like human beings. And so I have not gotten the scans back. I was kind of hoping to have those today. So I'm not thinking we're going to get images today, but maybe soon. I'm really hopeful because I got a whole bunch of desert shot in Kodak Double X, the stuff that Cinestill is repackaging now. And then I got a mixture of desert and small town and family stuff with some, I want to say Portra 160. It's called Ektar Color Pro 160 now. But so we shall see when that comes in. Hey, Uncle Daddy 65. Rob French did a Princeton reverb build, mostly to the schematic. Has a very faint low rumble as certain notes trail off, only on certain frequencies. Any idea where to start looking? Can't unhear. Well, mostly to the schematic means that I can only mostly help you. I don't know where you deviated. Very faint low rumble. That's an odd thing to have in any Princeton. Um, can you describe the ruckus, sir? Tell me what you did that's not on to the schematic, and tell me a better description than very faint low rumble. And it may just be a bum speaker or a bad ground somewhere, but it's not specific enough of a description for me. I'm sorry. Working player is kind of looking for a small desktop table mini amp running on batteries. It's got a Blackstar Fly 3, but it's starting to implode. Have to look for something else soon. All those are garbage. Don't mess with those. If you have a laptop or a desktop, and just get a small interface or get a HX Stomp or whatever that you can run into it with USB and use it speakers. It's going to be better sounding than any little bitty thing. It's going to last, and you certainly won't be running through the batteries all the time. Sorry to be so black and white about it, but man, all those little battery operated amps just suck. Thanks, Martin. Hope you and your wife are doing better. I hope your wife is doing better. And thank you. I'll pass your thoughts on to my mom. Blackstars I don't think are worth your money. And I don't think the katana is a bad thing because the katana is cheap. Now, if the katana were built the way it was and priced at $900, I'd have a big problem with it. But seeing as you can get a 50 watt for like $300, $350, you know, they're at least up front. But what you're getting exactly what you pay for. His baths just aren't the same without my dulcet tones. Hey, my dulcet tones don't have a double T and an E. I've got masculine dulcet tones. I don't have dulcet tones. J.G. Stone Raider, if that's even your real name. It's kind of strange to think about people listening to me while they're in the bath. Can I go scrub my brain after this? Okay, no bright cap, only difference. Put a different speaker in, no difference. Well, Princeton doesn't have a bright cap. Well, Rob, I'm not really sure. I don't know what to tell you. A faint low rumble as certain notes trail off. That's the only thing. How loud are you when this happens? Is it just at any volume, or is it when you're really playing loud? If it only happens when you're playing loud, it could be an artifact of the phase inverter. But I can't. That's such an odd symptom. Thanks, Mr. Colby Jack. Appreciate you. Game time. I can only have one. Rift PR18 or P2P Tremendous Reverb. Well, I'm the wrong person to ask because I'd just build my own. Both of them are variations on the Princeton. I've not seen what Chris is doing in his Rift. I'm sure he's doing really good things. I've seen pictures of the P2P Tremendous Reverb, and I spoke to the owner of P2P amps, and he's straight up. He buys the board from Hoffman, the turret board from Hoffman, and populates it himself. I don't love the Hoffman layout. There's nothing wrong with the Hoffman layout, but aesthetically, I find it displeasing to see all the kind of crisscross ground wires wrapping around the turrets and stuff. I'm particular about the way I lace my shoes, and that the one from the inset must go over the outside and not vice versa, and it has to repeat. All these things matter to me, and the layout of the Hoffman board aesthetically drives me to distraction. It's a fine layout, works really well. It's very rock solid. There's no reason not to use it. There's no reason for P2P amps not to use it. It's a way for him to save money by buying something that's already been laid out, that's tested. And he builds a nice amp. Of those two options, I'd probably go with Rift amps because I've seen at a glance the inside of the Rift amp, and it's aesthetically pleasing to my brain. That has nothing to do with anyone else's reality. In the actual reality, I do it myself. Yeah, Rumble, maybe a tube, but why is it? Oh, that's on Top Chat. I have no idea how it went back to Top Chat. Oh, yeah, I had to refresh it. I hate the fact that it distinguishes between live chat, all of them, and Top Chat, and I have no idea who makes the cut for which. For instance, Andy's comment, katanas are great, they just aren't made to be flogged every night. I saw it here on this display, but in the one that's live, it didn't show up because I had set it to Top Chat, and apparently Andy did not make Top Chat. It's ridiculous. It's like, I've turned off so much of the nonsense. I've turned off the rating system where I see who comments the most. I've turned off all the little awards and all the little floating hearts and garbage. If I can just get rid of the notion of Top Chat, and my God, if there's some way for me to tell YouTube, no, seriously, always show me the newest comments, not the top rated comments are most important by some algorithmic thing. Just show me the comments in the order they come in, all of them. And don't filter them. I mean, you can filter what other people can see. Show me all of them. Don't make me go through once a month and say, oh my God, why did it hide all these things? You know, like Rob French posted something totally fine as a reply to my thing, it flagged as potentially offensive and hid it, and I didn't see it. And by the time I find it and say, that's not offensive, let it be up there, Rob French is probably, that Lyle guy's real weird. He won't let me post. You know, it's like, come on, man. YouTube makes it so hard to use YouTube. I don't think the people who design it ever use it. Let us know how the EHs go. Yeah, I mean, if I wish I had a solution for you. I just never heard a low frequency rumble on certain notes from a Princeton. I mean, I've had it from amps where the speaker coil's messed up. I've had it on amps where there's a problem with the choke, but chasing his tail, David Allen Herrick. I had this amp for a year, and I was having feedback issues, so when I found what I did wrong, one meg resistor on V2 pin 1 and 6 instead of 100K. Oh, there you go. That poor amp had a lot of gain. Would have been extremely sensitive. Cheeseburgers aren't $20 in a sane world. Sadly, cheeseburgers are typically $12 to $15 in restaurants these days. But I had to have a cheeseburger delivered for my mother for her lunch. Explained at the beginning of the stream, and because of the timing and where she lives, I had to pay DoorDash to bring her a damn cheeseburger. So the worst cheeseburger in town is like 30 something bucks. The best cheeseburger in town is about $12. Second best is like $7 or $8 these days. For those of you who might come to Memphis who are interested in my votes there, the best cheeseburger in town is at RP Tracks. It's over by the University of Memphis. Best cheeseburger in town, hands down. Second best is at Tops Barbecue, any location. Double cheeseburger, all the way, grilled onions. You'll thank me later. It's all right, Rob. We all made jokes about your dick already. Yeah, artificial intelligence. The best explanation I've seen of artificial intelligence recently is it gives the rich access to skill without giving the skilled access to wealth. And here we are. Oh, speaking of such things in Lightroom, not Lightroom, but artificial intelligence, Instagram decided a couple of weeks ago to label any image that had ever been where you'd used Lightroom as likely AI. So you have all these professional photographers and professional artists whose work is suddenly tagged as most likely AI. None of it was AI. We might use a sky detection filter which is machine learning in the program. Is not We're not generating content. We're not making artificial images. But it was a big stink show on Instagram, and magically that tag went away. I got so mad because all of a sudden I saw the pictures I had done were labeled as AI. I'm like, motherfucker, I took that on a film camera. I opened it up in Lightroom and brought the exposure down 1 1/3 stops because I had overexposed, so I could shoot for the highlight, shoot for the shadows and have some detail in the shadows. And then I might have put a little S curve for contrast and then exported it as a JPEG. And it's saying is likely created with AI. For now, we seem to have won that battle. But man, they are so keen to like accuse us of using AI. Like every video I put out, I've got to certify no AI was used in this to create this. And then YouTube did the same. You might have seen it on Rhett's video a couple months back, or on Beato's video, where they will take our existing shorts and redo them using AI, and everything looks fake and weird. And then without telling us, they just did it for a while to some of the top shorts producers. So they're both accusing us of being AI when we're not, and they're forcing us to have AI content. I say us, they didn't do it to me. I don't have enough clicks to attract the AI masters yet. But, doing it without our will and then lying about whether or not we do it, it's just ridiculous. Exactly, Rob. But you do that with your wife one time, and fortunately, we have a very comfortable couch. I'm kidding. It's a horrible couch to sleep on. I'm also kidding that we get along just fine. But it is difficult when you find yourself just almost automatically treating her like she's just your best friend, and then all of a sudden she's mad at you just because you called her stupid. What a stupid thing to get mad about. She is not stupid. She knows that I think very highly of her. It's the photographers who replace sky as nothing. Yeah, if you replace the sky, I don't want to see your picture. I don't know if you're generating bullshit. I hate the photographs out there where it's like, hey, it's noon on the side of the church, but it's like 9 o'clock at night with a storm coming through at night. Oh, that's what a blue sky looks like if you do this. I hate all the over dramatic stuff. But if I select a sky and just bring the sky down 1/3 of a stop and bring the highlights down a little bit just to balance out a thing, that's just same thing I could have done using dodging and burning in the darkroom. I'm not generating anything. I'm just controlling how the camera sees it or saw it versus creating the image, the JPEG, usually these days that you guys get to see, which would be the same as manipulating the contrast lens that you use on the enlarger and which paper you use to make a film print in the darkroom days. So I don't use AI. I use machine learning. Like here, I'll turn off the plugin that lets you not hear the background noise in my room. All right, I just turned off clarity. For those of you with really good sound systems or headphones, you will hear that my background noise got louder because there's an air conditioner and there's a fan. I'll turn it back on, and it just says, "Hey, I can detect what is and what is not a human voice, and I've got mine set so that everything that is not a human voice is turned down by about 30%, which is much nicer and less artificial sounding than a traditional noise gate, etc. It's machine learning, but it's not AI. I'm not making myself sound like I don't know, James Earl Jones or something, or using it to replace my voice. I hate all the AI voices on videos. I got so mad. There was some video presented itself as David Attenborough discusses X. I clicked on it, and I realized in about 5 minutes it was an AI David Attenborough reading the world's worst ChatGPT script that just kept repeating itself and just basically paraphrasing itself for 10 minutes at a time. And my God, how do they get away with that? They should be sued into oblivion, especially voices like David Attenborough. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that masks um, deserve the AI label. It's I can understand the slippery slope argument. There's also some intent, but for uh, uh, Meta of all fucking people to just sweep and decide it's all AI, people. I think they're trying to normalize AI so that we can't tell what is and what is not. Hey, Rai Keck. Heard me mention biasing a Bhagna Shiva at 40% in an older video. Can I give a 5,000 foot explanation about what makes a Shiva have such a large bias swing? Um, I think I might have said that when I had the bias up, I started the bias at 40% and I would recheck later because the Shivas are notorious for being hotter 30 minutes later than when you first power them on. And so I think I probably wanted to start off about 40 and then see where it was and make any adjustments if necessary. I don't remember if I made any adjustments beyond that. Uh, in a nutshell, the 5,000 foot view, as you say, um, Shivas have a lot of preamp gain, and so they don't need the output section to work as hard. So you can have a cleaner output section without losing the impact. In fact, you can have a little bit more dynamics to the playing that way because the output is not going to compress. So when you play hard, it has a big jump. The flip side of that, though, is the cooler the bias of the output tubes, the higher the B plus, and the B plus in a Shiva is already crazy high. So you've got to balance them out. Um, I imagine that amp probably went home biased somewhere between 45% and 55%. Uh, but it's been a hot minute or two. Um, sorry, I can't be more precise. It's been a few years since I had a Shiva in. Yeah, I mean, I love dramatic atmospheric photos if that's what it actually looked like. Now, I'll use a red or yellow filter on black and white, either film or I'll do it digitally to enhance the look of that sky. But that's a creative tool that we've always done. We used to do it optically. Um, but I'm not gonna say like, well, I didn't like the sky this day. It was gray and overcast, so let me generate a blue sky with fluffy little clouds and happy little trees and all that bullshit. Um, you know, I want to. I don't. It's like that. I should probably do videos on stupid things the chairman of Fender has said this week. Other channels seem to be making a lot of money off of it. It's very nice of him to keep saying stupid things just so all these little YouTube channels can make some money. But, what he said about AI being no different than cover bands or being good for musicians, oh my God. You think the board of directors are like, dude, shut up or you're out. Just you've done enough damage. Um, I'm sure, given his track record of being so clever on the internet, if he were to lose his job at Fender, he'd have a place in DC pretty quickly these days. All right. Well, we've kind of running out of steam, or I'm kind of running out of steam. I think we're gonna we've went hours late in the last couple ones. I think we're gonna end this one a little bit early today. I hope that's okay with everyone. Let's see, where was I? Unless anyone has got some last minute, really urgent amp questions, I think I might go for a walk because it's like 25 degrees cooler today than it has been. What temperature is it out there right now? 82 degrees right now. Had a high of 83, and it's cloudy. And considering that it's been like 105, 108 lately, I think I'm going to go for that walk. Hey there, Steve. All right. I'll talk to you guys very soon. You all have a good week and look for some more videos coming in the next couple days. Thanks very much.